All right. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Chop It Up with P. Scott. I'm Prescott Kelly. Today is Tuesday, August 13th. Glad to have you back with us. Today, I have the one and the only real Dallas insider. I use that word sometimes too aggressively because I don't know how I can label you as, but I trust your word over just about anybody else's when it comes to actual Dallas Cowboys talk and news. You are deeply rooted in this team. Dylan Larson back on the mic with me. How you doing, my man?
Hey, doing great. Yeah, well, thank you for the accolades as far as giving me my respect, as far as knowing what I'm talking about when it comes to the Cowboys. Sadly, I am an incredibly passionate fan that, just like all fans, we're ready for some results. It's been an interesting couple decades as a diehard Cowboys fan, but somehow, some way, they just can't get rid of me. I'm like the fan base cockroach at this point, I guess.
You see the shrine that's behind me that I've had to deal with the whole boy, I love losing Super Bowls.
Yep.
I've been labeled a bad Bills fan, and I'm okay with that because I'm just like, I've read this story before. I've seen this movie. I know how it ends. It's you can't hurt me anymore. I'm a machine jerk. Hashtag Ray Lewis.
Yep. I totally get it. At this point, when we get in the playoffs, I'm expecting pain. I've been
Yeah.
right there live in the flesh for a lot of the most recent painful losses, and at this point, you go in kind of expecting pain. It's like Randy Quaid in Major League, right?
that is an underrated reference.
Yeah.
So you and I had the chance to talk off air a bit. We kind of have our talking points, but the one thing I wanted to get into at first was, do you see a lot of jealousy in the Texas fan base because of the uprising of Houston, because of the Texans kind of surprising us last year with a rookie quarterback, rookie head coach, and seeing them being able to turn around. And even though they're not considered by most a Super Bowl contending team, they're still one of the hot young teams that a lot of teams, like a lot of people are high on. Are you feeling the pressure from like local Texans as far as Houston's trying to grip that America's team from y'all? Because I feel it could be very hard to do that regardless.
Yeah, it would be incredibly hard for them to do it. As far as Houston fans go, we do have a rivalry, obviously, with the Rangers and the Astros.
Sure.
Astros have clearly had a lot of success in the past decade or so, and the Rangers just won the World Series this past year. So it's been a lot of fun. So there's always a little bit of rivalry going. Now, obviously, with the Texans and Cowboys, we typically play every 4 years, or can be every 3 years at this point now with how the schedule is set up.
On a leap year.
That being said, we only play every 4 years, yet every time we do, both fan bases show up. They all want that one pride game. So absolutely, Texans fans are definitely talking. Their quarterback clearly is the more talented of the two, which it means a lot in football.
Ooh, just went straight, clearly more talented.
I mean, he is. I mean, he should have been the number one overall pick when he came out. That was my stance all along. He was QB1 for me. It was a no-brainer, kind of like Caleb Williams. With that being said, the Texans would never become the franchise that the Dallas Cowboys are. They would have to establish decade after decade of dominance for a sustained period of time. And that's just so hard to do in the modern day. That's why a lot of these teams that have illustrious backgrounds, they continue to be legacy teams because it's so hard to create a true dynasty.
Like
Now,
Pittsburgh, like San Francisco.
Yeah, you have to get one of those generational quarterbacks to really have that. With a Pat Mahomes, someone like that. I don't think the Texans can ever get there. With that being said, Houston has a fantastic football team. They are trending up. They got a great pass rusher in Will Anderson. They have weapons for the quarterback. They upgraded at running back. They've been building in the trenches. They're doing all the right things. They got the right coach, a guy who understands the Houston fan base because he was there for a very long time. He's a defensive-minded guy that found an offensive, young, creative genius that he's going to lose in the next 2 years. So that will be the test. When they lose,
That's
When
the
they lose
cyclical
the
cycle,
offense,
man.
and
Once you get
yes,
good, all the coordinators want to be coaches,
hmm
and then how do you regroup?
that's it. So, I mean, so it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. With that being said, they're a fantastic football team. That one I have circled is probably going to be one of the most electric games on the schedule for us is when Houston comes to town. Should be a lot of fun.
Oh, so y'all play each other this year.
Yes, yes, we do.
This is your Olympic year.
It's going to be fun. Yeah, that's right. So this is when, yes, the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex is going to be just packed to the brim of people because the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex and then Houston, when they come together, those fan bases, it's a short enough drive. People come up and the tailgate's going to be insane. That's
Oh,
definitely going to be
that's the
going
one
to be
thing
a
I
good one.
really miss. I've only been to one professional football game in my entire life, and I drove up to Orchard Park from DC with my dad to go watch a Bills Ravens game, and it was insane. And I have no idea what it would be like now, 15 years removed from that, and especially in Texas. Good lord.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Should be it's right on the schedule in the timeline where the weather should be good enough outside where they open up the roof, open up the doors. We'll see how they go about that. But
So
yeah,
is
it
that
should be a good one.
is that an earlier season game then it sounds like?
Yeah, so yes, it's in the middle part of the season.
Okay.
Part is when
What
that
I'm looking to do is because I know a lot of people in like the Houston and like San Antonio, Dallas area, like just Texas in general, because one, I'm from there, and then two, I've met some really
true.
awesome people through the internet channels. And I'm hoping to get down for the Texans and Bills game, which is I think is October 6th, and be in the area and just, do some shenanigans with some of my Texas folk.
No doubt. That's awesome. Yeah.
So after, and you're going to experience that firsthand because as you were giving me your bona fides off air, and you have some access to the Cowboys facility. Are you going to be there for that specific game?
Oh yes. So I work as a tour guide for the Cowboys. Legends Hospitality is the company. Technically, it's owned by Jerry Jones and George Steinbrenner. They started off
Oh
only
snap!
doing Cowboys and Yankees related things. It was a way for both the Steinbrenners and Jones families to maximize revenue within the pro shops located in their stadium, where it's not technically league affiliated because it's owned under this company called Legends Hospitality. Finds they allows them to maximize their profits within their stadiums. It gives Jerry a little piece of Yankee Stadium, and the Steinbrenner family, when they coordinated this deal, a piece of Cowboy Stadium, which is now AT&T Stadium. So it
See, this,
started as that. Then they created it as a total hospitality company because they were doing bids when both stadiums were opening, and they were like, okay, um, the bids we're getting, we don't really like the prices we're seeing. We think we could do it cheaper. We think we could do it better and cheaper. So they created their own company, which does all catering and food services within both stadiums, concessions, also gives tours. And it started as just those two teams. Now it has become a global company that gives tours at Real Madrid, gives tours at Notre Dame. They give tours for the Rams. I mean, so many
that's
different teams
SoFi, and
throughout professional sports. It started as just one idea for them, and it's expanded now to be its own gigantic, multi-billion-dollar company. And that's technically who employs me, but I do have access to yes, both AT&T Stadium as well as the Star, and love giving tours for them. It's a lot of fun.
so you need to give me their name, address, phone number. I'll give you my resume, and
Yes,
I would
sir.
like to have fly me down for some conferences.
Yeah, for real. It's a lot of fun. It's just a really good time. I mean, when I walk in the stadium, I don't have to worry about them losing on most games. Most days I'm giving tours, so I have a smile on my face the whole time.
There you go. I
And
love that.
I'm helping share some of my knowledge and experience within the stadium with these fans that this might be the only time they get to come to the stadium is to do this tour that they've been waiting, years and years to come and see. So the stadium's already, 15 years old. It still looks every bit as good as it did the day they built it.
Is it
They,
really 15 years old?
yes, it really is. And it still is immaculate and it still is one of the most beautiful stadiums in the league. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to go in there and take people around, get them in the locker room, put them in some suites. share a lot of facts just about game day experience as well. It's a lot of
It
fun.
doesn't feel like it was 15 years ago when Eli Manning walked into there and gave them their first L.
Signature is still in the away locker room. I can confirm it is still there. So
I'm glad that Jerry can be a good sport and at least keep that there, because if he took that down, that'd be petty. I would understand it, but I appreciate the fact that he left it up.
yeah, it's definitely
You
there.
don't want to admit that.
Yeah. Yes, but it is a lot of fun. I mean, being able to get access and be able to, again, just be able to walk through, and I can just walk around and check out, the stadium at different viewpoints, and think about script delivery and all of those things pretty much whenever I want. Just walk in, scan my badge, and in the door I go. So it's a lot of fun.
That's
It really
really
is.
cool, man. I'm more jealous of you now than I was before we got live. Thanks for ruining my afternoon. Anyway, let's ruin yours. So, as far as everything going on with Dak, Cedee, Micah, Jerry, it's been a weird and kind of tumultuous offseason. And it feels like every year we elevate, we think that it's worse in Dallas than it really is, right? Because it's a perennial 10-win team. They're always going to be in the playoffs. The sky is not always falling, but because it's Jerry Jones and because of the way that he
He sells
maneuvers
the
his way.
system.
Yeah, exactly. The way that he does things the way that he does, it makes it feel like it's bigger than what it actually is. So we know that Dak wants a new contract. CD, same thing. Same thing with Micah, because if I understand correctly, Micah's going to make almost 25 million this year, but if they cut, trade, whatever, they'll incur like a 20+ million dollar cap hit, but next year they won't. So he's trying to secure a bag now. Do you see all three deals getting done? Do you see them moving off of one of the three guys? What's your feel and what are you hearing? Because you have the launch codes in Dallas.
Yes, so Lamb without question is getting done. This is just more evidence, unfortunately, of one of the few things that the front office does not do well, which is have the foresight to know when you have a generational type talent and lock them up long term as soon as you can, because the number's only going up.
Right.
After that third accrued season, according to the NFL collective bargaining agreements, you are able to renegotiate your contract if you believe you've outperformed it. They all, I mean, as far
All
as
three, yeah.
Lamb and Micah have, Dak has probably played up to where his contract number sits, although we said he was overpaid when it happened, and I told you he'd be 8th through 12th in salary by the end of it, and there he is now.
And there he is.
So he's kind of played up to that. I don't think he could play up to 60 million. So I understand the hesitance, especially because we haven't gotten it done when it matters the most. Against high-level defenses, he tends to look more pedestrian.
Yeah.
He looks like he's getting confused by some of the reads. He's not seeing things as clearly against some of the high-level defenses that are giving him these different looks, and they might show him a cover 3 look at the snap, and he thinks a blitz is coming, and next thing you know, they drop back into cover 2, and he throws an interception where he didn't see a guy. Those types of things where you do have some of those questions with him. With that being said, you have those questions with the Josh Allen, with just about anybody not named
Nobody
Mahomes.
wants to hear that from me, though. I'm the hater.
Sure. I mean, I don't have to tell you, as far as that goes,
Right.
But Dak is you can put him in anywhere from tier 2 to tier 4, and I'm not mad at you, depending on how he plays that day and just on a week-to-week basis. I mean, really, it's Mahomes and everybody else at this point. Burrow shows you flashes, but then he has the injury questions. He's earned his money. He got them to a Super Bowl appearance. He's earned that. Dak Prescott has not gotten them to an NFC championship game, which is what fans are all asking for. This year, it pretty much hinges on Mike McCarthy get us to the NFC championship game, or you and Dak might be finding jobs elsewhere. And I think that's why the deal hasn't necessarily been done, because it would alleviate a lot of the cap stress that we have as far as getting the Lamb and Parsons deals done. With that being said, there are ways to structure contracts where getting those extensions done could actually free money in that first year because of how you can prorate bonuses. You can give them a huge check up front, and you can actually make their cap hit so minimal in the first couple of years and stretch it out. Add a couple of void years at the end of it is the common thing to do these days, which
Yeah,
means
the
you have
salary
dead
cap
cap
is
down the line, but the cap is always climbing. So
right.
it's not going to be as substantial of an impact later on, which is what a lot of teams have figured out. With that being said, the Jones family still is kind of operating with how the cap was 20 years ago. For whatever reason, it's one of the one things they tremendously struggle with is getting ahead of these things. They wait until the last minute. They act like there's no urgency, exactly as Jerry just said, right in the middle of training camp. We've already installed 12 days of our offensive plan for the year as far as system installs, and Cedee Lamb wasn't here for them,
Well, I
but he's
feel like
acting
when
like there's no
you
urgency.
I feel like
So
what you run into sometimes the people who just give you the confidence and say, "Well, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out." There are too many people who blindly follow that regardless of what situation you're in. They're like, "Well, he's done it before." And it's like, "Yeah, if we're talking about sports, it's been, almost 3 decades. Like maybe we should not put all of our faith into this person given how things have changed." Like you just said, the market, the way that we conduct contracts, CBAs, everything has changed dramatically. And it is something where I've seen with Jerry Jones, it feels like he's just going off the name. I'm Jerry Jones. I have the Super Bowls. I'm the richest owner. Just put your faith in me and I'll figure it out. And it's like, bro, you haven't been able to though recently.
he helps make players more money after they retire than any owner in NFL history, and it's not close.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that he can sell, that he can market, and he's right. He can help you make way more money when you retire than any other owner. He knows how to market you. He can take advantage of you in so many different ways. He can help you expand on different business acumen you might already naturally have. He might utilize you within their studios doing shows. There's different things that he can do to put you on after you retire where the checks keep coming in. And that's where a lot of his value lies. And he knows that. With that
Well,
being said, he's getting old. He's starting to lose it. He's
I don't even
still
know if
pretty
he's
sly and
getting
pretty
old,
sharp.
dude.
With that being said, he's starting to slip. And there it is about time. And also, Steven's not the answer. Steven is a big part of the problem. His son, Steven Jones, who does a lot of the negotiating on these deals, procrastinates. He waits until the last minute. They act like it's not a big deal. He says all the right stuff to the media, and then it's crickets when it's time to talk to the agents. Let's be proactive on these things. We know where the number is generally going to lie on most of these guys. We know that Lamb is looking at somewhere around $33, $34 million annual per year. That's where he's going to land. So, what now needs to be figured out? Is it Lamb wants a 3-year extension and we want to give him a 5? So then we meet in the middle with the 4? Are these even discussions that they've even started yet? That's the problem. Is all this can be talked about after the 3rd year. How is it now that we are climbing up here and the clock is ticking and they still don't have these parameters established? You
Well, that
know,
was one of the arguments that I made a couple years ago with the whole Lamar Jackson deal. And it was like he doesn't need an owner or he doesn't need an agent. He knows what he's worth. He sees where the only thing you really need, you don't even need an agent for. You need like a lawyer. Look over the contract itself, but I know what every other quarterback's making. I've won MVP before I won my second one. I know where the money is. Just make sure that like legally I'm not getting hijacked on certain things. So, like, you're right. When it comes to Stephen Jones, you already know what every other quarterback is making. You know roughly where they want to be. Now it's just a semantics of is it a yearly thing as far as how many years you want to be employed with us? Because for me, you work for the NFL, you don't work for that team. Those contracts don't mean anything, anyways. You can be traded, you can be cut, it doesn't matter. So, if you as long as you are in the right ballpark, as long as you haven't completely screwed these players over, I think they largely want to keep where they are.
yes, but also I've seen it time and time again where a player that's put in the work, that's been there for film study, been there for the off-season training programs, they've put in the work with that organization. They get offered a deal that somehow they feel is disrespectful of their market. So then they
Oh
want
yeah.
to go and shop. They say, no, I'm not going to sign that. I'm going to go and test the market. The market is more dry than they thought it was. The deal we offered them was better than what they end up getting, yet they still take a lower deal to go somewhere else, or maybe the same exact deal to go elsewhere
Oh, their price,
because
or
they
dude, that was
haven't.
the old price. That's the old Dave Chappelle skit. That's the old price,
Yes,
dog.
right, right. So yes, and then they end up going somewhere else. Like Dalton Schultz, for example, is a prime example of that. We offered him a $12 million a year contract. In his contract year, he felt that was disrespectful based on his performance, and he ended up going and signing for less than that in Houston.
But that comes back to the whole like brotherly love / hatred thing, where it's like, okay, well, I still want to stay in state, I guess, because the state taxing, I know it matters,
Yeah.
but
Oh, it does.
it matters, but I think it's overblown to a degree. But he's also like, well, I don't really want to relocate. The housing market's trash, and if I'm taking less money, I better stay where I live.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's pretty smart of him for sure. Um, but yeah, so it kind of goes both ways. With that being said, we like to pay our own here. They don't like to go out and do a lot of free agency and trades to acquire players. They're really not crazy about it. They do bargain barrel free agents. We don't really make big splashes these days, and that's largely the influence of Steven. Jerry's son, who is much more conservative than Jerry is, he's saying, hey, we're making money hand over fist, putting out a 87 to 89 overall team. Why are we pushing to go to a 93 when we really don't have to? You
The
know what I
younger
mean?
group is
Like,
all
that's
about
the
that Madden
mindset.
rating.
Like, I mean, that's the easiest way to paint the picture to make people understand, like that's really the mindset Steven has. And that's why we haven't taken that leap to become a true contender. We are just good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to actually beat those really good teams several weeks in a row to be able to go on a run. And it's that how conservative he is. And also he's conservative with his contracts. And it's not even his money. Salary caps, if
Yeah.
people didn't know, is actually paid for by the NFL league revenue from the past year. There's a percentage
Right.
of the revenue generated that goes to the players. It's
The
already
coaching
gone. It's
staffs
already
are completely different, though.
now, how you choose to spend it is up to the team. But that
Right.
money is not coming out of the owner's pockets. That's one misconception that needs to be cleared up with a lot of fans as well, is they think that owners are being cheap. When
That's what's so
truthfully,
weird to
they're
me.
being cheap and it's not even their money. The ones that aren't spending it, it's not even their money. That's the players'
Exactly. Now you can have a plan, right? You can have a plan as an owner that you don't want to spend certain money because you're projecting different drafts, you're projecting different free agencies down the line, and maybe that's not why you're wanting to spend, because you want to save at the cap space to be able to afford players or afford the rookie salaries or whatever. But to think that the owners are being cheap because it's their money, that has always been so wild to me, that people don't understand that basic thing, because it's a salary cap. It is for every team.
That's it.
I've never understood how people don't understand that basic thing. But so you're certain that Cedee Lamb will get his contract, and I'm with you. I think that that's going to happen. Do you think Micah gets extended this season? Like at some point in time during the regular season? It may not happen
I
before
would have
training
had
camp.
it done by June, but it's not me. Do I
Right.
think we get it done this year? Probably not. It will probably be after this year, after he has a 19 sack season, after having a 14 sack season last year. And the price just keeps on going up. He's going to be the highest paid non quarterback in the league when he gets his deal. Everyone is aware of this. That's just what's happening. We know it as well. That's also why we're saying, can we really pay Dak Prescott $60 million to come and play quarterback for us when we have all these other contracts? I mean, that is where it lies. Is they're trying to figure that piece out, and I think they have to figure out what they're doing with Dak before they actually get the Micah deal done. So I think that it really does hinge kind of on what path they end up taking. And truthfully, the entire organization is one way or the other. There is no
They're split. Some
consensus.
want to cut ties, some want to extend.
Absolutely. So there is no true consensus in the building as far as what they want to do with them, which is why it hasn't gotten done. The entire plan of how they built the contract was with an extension in mind, because there are in fact dead cap hits at the tail end of the contract, which we'll
Right.
have to pay whether he's with us or not. So if he's gone, we still take those cap hits on the dead cap. As far as with having the void years, That's the risk you play, and you only do that if you expect you're going to extend the guy. So if the contract expires without extending him, that's a whole other ballgame as far as that goes. So it will be really interesting. I am of the boat of let him play it out, let him feel the heat and feel the pressure all year long. So that way, when the pressure is there in the playoffs, maybe he's ready for it because it's been there all year long. I don't think that's a bad strategy.
I don't think so either, actually, because it's always one of those things where I know that for me personally, I subscribe to the rule that I know that there's the way that quarterbacks work to me are almost the exact same way that teams work. Every year, I know there's going to be three that are up here, three that are down here, and then everybody else is essentially 8 and 9, 9 and 8. But you get a couple bounces every week, so you end up being 11 and 6, or vice versa. So for me, I've always subscribed to the rule that if I'm going to get similar production from most of the quarterback staff, why would I keep paying these guys now, like you're saying, 50, 55, some up to $60 million a year shortly, when I could just reset the clock and just draft a quarterback basically every time that contract is about to expire with my starter? If I don't know definitively that he's the dude, why am I going to end up putting $60 million of resources into you annually as opposed to 12 or 15, whatever the case is initially on these rookie deals? So I'm at the point now where I don't usually subscribe to the rule that you shouldn't pay the dude if you don't think that you have the dude. But if you're paying dudes just because the contract is up, that to me is irresponsible, and you're not being honest with yourself. You're being disingenuous with, well, what if he goes someplace else and is good? Well, then you should have got good too. And I'm kind of that same way with Dak. Is when you had made the point of, no, let him feel the sweat. Because it is weird to me that when it comes to professional quarterbacks, we put them on this weird extreme where they're supposed to be the most even keeled, cool headed people who don't let the outside noise affect them. But once you start to affect their mental capacity, like there might be a quarterback challenge, then all of a sudden they're frail. No, man, we can't be doing this. And I think you're right with Dak, is maybe just let him sweat it out this one off season. But if we have to watch this movie again, then you're done, son.
That's exactly where I am. And you aren't married to a guy that if they fall flat again, maybe they are one win outside of the playoffs, or maybe they win a wild card game and that's it, and they get blown out in round two. If something like that happens, I really do feel that they're going to hit the reset button and they're going to explore other options. I don't know exactly what those options are. With that being said, if the Dak deal gets done, now you're married to him. So it'll be really interesting to see, because
Yeah.
if the extension happens before this season and they fall flat yet again, the coach is gone.
Would you be okay with that?
I would be okay with it, although I don't think it's entirely McCarthy's fault. I feel like he's finally taking accountability and he is changing some things that he has been a little bit too relaxed on. He's been emphasizing penalties that he sees throughout practices this year, as opposed to kind of being laid back and just shrugging about it in past years, where the sloppiness that happens, um, some of those things that discipline that you can easily clean up with just having accountability for it. It feels like he has a little more attention to detail. He knows that everything is on the line this year, and I am rooting for him, obviously. I hope things go well. With that being said, I was ready to have him gone at halftime against the Packers last year.
Dude, I was gonna say, if it wasn't that playoff game, it was probably like week 8 of 2022. You were like, nah, man, I'm not having this anymore.
Yes. I mean, I feel like it's a product of Will McClay doing a fantastic job drafting players. And that's really what keeps us in the hunt, so to speak. We're at least relevant enough where the sizzle ends up making people either make them look like the greatest team ever, or if you hate them, they look like absolute trash, depending on what the perspective is. As we said, everything kind of gets magnified, right?
Right.
I do feel like he's been a little bit of a product of the talent that we've had. I do feel Mike Zimmer, schematically, is going to do a lot of really fun things with the defense this year. I think that if we were to hang our hat on any part of the team this year, I would say our defensive secondary is going to be really, really good, and that's a good place to be good.
I'm excited to see Diggs and
So
Bland back together and fully healthy. And
Jordan Lewis had a really strong second half of last year coming off of a serious injury, and he's looking really, really good in camp as the slot corner. We have a rookie named Kalen Carson who is ready to play now. He is in your hip pocket. He's sticky. He's going to be pushing for some reps inside, outside. If we go dime, we have 4 guys that can legit cover, which is a beautiful thing to have in the NFL. I was expecting him to be more of just a guy coming out. I didn't think that he had any specific trait that made him extremely special. Watching him in camp, he is sticky. He is always in phase with the receiver. He's never out of place, and he likes to make plays on the football. So we actually have a really nice rookie coming in as well. So we are truthfully 4 deep at corner, which not a lot of teams can say. And that is going to be a big, big part of what makes us successful this year. With that being said, the offense is going to have to figure out who the lead back is, which I think it's going to be Rico Dowdle, myself, as far as who's going to get the bulk of the carries. I think Zeke is here to pass protect. We'll see if Royce Freeman makes the team.
well, he wasn't a good center, so
He was not a great center, I will say that. And also, I'm not really thrilled about him being back, to be honest. I'll welcome him back for the pass protection. With that being said, I feel like when you have a play that's blocked clean for 6 yards, and he gets you 12 every 3 times he gets the chance, but he gets you 6 to 7 the rest of the time, that's not someone that I'm excited to give the ball to. I want to see someone that when it's blocked clean for 6, you can go and make one play and be at the third level of the defense consistently, moving those chains, getting a little bit more. And Dowdle has that juice to him. He has the ability to bounce off tacklers. I think that he has a little bit more of that, obviously, than what Zeke has. Zeke looks like he's been using Ozempic, I will say that. He does look like he's trimmed down. It looks like he might not be having as many late-night Wingstop orders. He looks like he's realizing he's getting older, and he should have been putting in the work like Derrick Henry all along, and he'd be having a gold jacket at the end of his career instead of bouncing around as a veteran. You know, so
that was fantastic. I love how you brought the smoke with that one. So my buddy Nick, who is a Texans fan, he's in the building. I need to get back to the chat for a second. Paul Wizzo says, "What's up, guys?" Bobby Odden, who's in Louisiana, same thing. Nick Stevens said, "What it do?" And just because everyone thinks the Cowboys aren't going to be good, this is probably the year they win the Super Bowl. And I would say that is how I've always viewed as a Bills fan from basically 2006 to 2014. Oh, we're that bad? Oh, this is our year. No. I still don't know, but I do want to get into some because again, with him being a Texans fan and you being a Cowboys fan, you gave them their flowers earlier in their episode, which I think is really healthy as sports fans to be able to do that. But one thing that I've been on my horse about this for the last month or so, I guess, is I think that people are sleeping on the Eagles too much with them getting Kellen Moore as the OC and they've got Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator. I feel like, to me, that was really their problem. Was it looks like they quit, and sometimes did you quit on the coaches? Did you quit on the quarterback? I have no idea. I feel like quitting when you're talking about professional football players specifically can be a little bit disingenuous because that seems like a gig that you wouldn't want to just give up on. You may not have the same juice every play, but looking at the Eagles, I do feel like they're in turn for a bounce back year. And I personally am not as high on the Packers and the Lions as most folks. I'm not as high on, I guess the other San Francisco. I'm still high on San Francisco, but when you look at how the playoff matchups work, right? If there's 4 division winners and there's 3 wild cards, if the Cowboys don't win the division, are you worried that they may not make the playoffs if one of these teams because every year we also see a team that doesn't make the playoff make the playoff and vice versa. Are you worried about Dallas not making the playoffs because you think that Philadelphia will be that big of a challenge, or do you still feel that that's a playoff team? And obviously, barring the major injuries, I want to caveat it with that because that's obviously that's an obvious thing. But what was kind of your view of the landscape of how real is it that Dallas doesn't even make the playoffs this year?
it's a possibility. I don't think that us making the playoffs hinges on the 2 Eagles games. With that being said, Dak Prescott has not had an issue with winning division games. If you look at his
Oh, he
record in
really
the
hasn't.
division, it's exceptional. So I am not highly concerned as far as that goes from a making the playoff standpoint. But I will say the Eagles are a tremendous football team. That offensive line is going to move people, and they have a running back that if he can stay healthy, he pulled his hamstring while I just said that. With that being said, he's like Zion of the NBA, where he's just too damn big for being that explosive. His body just cannot take it. His ligaments, his soft tissue, his bones, it can't handle the explosion, the torque. It's like a Ferrari in a Ford Focus frame.
Okay,
You
well, I
know,
used to own a Ford Focus. I feel personally attacked by that, but I
sure.
appreciate your comparison, though.
Yes, I mean it's just too much. It's just they're when they're putting all that torque on their bodies. I mean, at some point in time, with how explosive he is, something's going to go wrong. Just with how much of a freak he really is. But he is one of the most talented, if not the most talented back in the league, as far as everything that he does when it comes to just purely running the football and instincts, running the ball. He's incredible. But the question is, can he stay healthy? Even behind that line where they should be clearing things for him. I think he's going to be a fantasy league winner if he stays healthy. I will
That
say that.
that was the thing that I said when they first got Saquon. Everybody was like, "You overpaid for Saquon," and my argument was, New York has been trash at quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive line his entire time there. And when you're trying to show people that you're the best at what you do, sometimes you tend to overdo what you should be doing and try to show up and show out too much. And now the fact is, like, if he didn't already have all the injuries, then I would love that pickup even more. But the fact that you have had those injuries, it does show that you are going to break down at some point in time. But having actual skill position players, having an actual quarterback, depending on where you want to put Jalen Hurts, is up to you. But the offensive line as well being better. Everything is just better in Philadelphia, minus the field, which even that seems to be a push. I feel like he's going to be more downhill and not trying to make other people miss and try to be Superman all the time. And I think that he's going to average like 5.5 yards a carry, man. I don't think that that's out of the question. He might be a 1,300-yard rusher this year, bro.
I think so pretty easily. If he stays healthy, he's going to be a difference maker. There's no way around it. They have fantastic weapons. I mean, they just really have a loaded offensive team. The defense has a ton of talent. It'll be interesting to see if the linebackers, because they are putting a lot of faith in some younger linebackers, we'll see how they play. Trotter Jr., I really like. He's a little small and not that fast, but with that being said, if you let him play downhill, he's a difference maker and he finds the football. They haven't had a guy like that. They can just make the safe tackle every time, and Trotter can do that if the defensive line can keep him running free, which they can. They have
Yeah,
the
because I
they
feel like
have the
Jalen
hogs
Carter
up
is going to
front.
be a monster.
So it should be a lot of fun. The secondary has questions, obviously. We'll see how all of that pads out. They've really tried to reload. Howie does a tremendous job of identifying the weaknesses on his team and really going all in to try to address them. There are still some positions that he tends to neglect. With that being said, he does a fantastic job building his team. They're going to be a really good team. I hate them, sure, but they're a really good team. I have nothing but respect for them when they come to town. I know it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a lot of fun. Luckily enough, we tend to split. So both fan bases get a little bit of satisfaction, a little bit of disappointment.
There you go.
It's balanced as a great rivalry should be. So all in all, my hat's off to them. They've done a great job building a fantastic team. We'll see how the season shakes out. I don't have a lot of disrespect or things to really say negatively about them. I'm not going to go and find negative clips of them and post them all over online trying to act like they're going to be bad. By all means, I have nothing but respect for them.
That makes you a bad fan and a good person, though.
What was that?
I said that makes you a bad fan, but a good person.
I suppose so. I'll be rooting against them at least 6 times this year. I want them to lose every divisional game so we get the tiebreaker. But
for sure.
Other than that, I like seeing them perform well. I like seeing the division go out and compete well against other divisions. It's never fun when your division is the one that sucks, and then you get called the NFC least or AFC least or whatever it is.
We're both the two extremes of the badness.
Yes. But then
To
it
be
sometimes gets flipped and it's AFC beasts or NFC beasts. You never know when that might happen. It's kind of happened
this year
both
feels like
divisions.
that for the AFC East. That's what it kind of feels like this year is because I'm not as high on Buffalo. Spoiler alert, as most people are. But I do think that Miami is still going to be a problem. I think the Jets are going to be a problem. But just to play devil's advocate, because we were talking about the Eagles and Hassan Reddick has asked to be traded from the Jets, you think he goes back to Philly?
I don't know. We'll see. Usually, when Howie is decided to move on from a guy, he might bring them back if they were effective. But if he doesn't see long term gain from that, if it's an all in move where he thinks that gets them over the hump for one season, he would do it. However, he typically is looking at the long term, and he is more willing to get rid of a guy a year early instead of 1 year too late.
Got that Belichick in him.
He does. He has that mindset, and he's a great executive. I have nothing bad to say about Howie. He's a dick, but
I do feel like this is their. I don't want to say it's this. This is their year, but when I look at, like you and I kind of touched on already, their offensive prowess is already it's still intact. We feel like that's going to be a top offense in at least the NFC, if not the NFL collectively, and offensive line, everything like that. If you got a guy who knows how to play the way that you want to play, and Vic Fangio is not somebody who is a very let's say he's not intimidated by anything. He is going to want to attack. Man, I feel like if they brought Hassan back, that might be the only team that I can, because I'm not as high on Green Bay. I'm not as high on Detroit. That's a squad that could actually knock off San Francisco and get back to a Super Bowl this year if they had a guy like Reddick back on their squad.
I agree. I think that they're already there. I think that they are one of the few teams that really can compete with San Francisco in a game. The key lies in the Sirianni and Hurts relationship, how that pans out throughout the year, how much trust does Sirianni have in Hurts, how much trust does Hurts have in Sirianni,
Well, that's kind of
vice
the thing, right?
versa,
That,
and how Kellen Moore, when things don't go well, if he's going to understand that his natural revert into a Linehan based offensive play caller where he's calling all curls on 3rd and 6 and all corners are sitting on it, you're going to see some challenges. When he's in his bag early on and he looks like Coach Klein with the green notebook out here and he's drawing up all these beautiful creative plays and he's razzle dazzling the hell out of you and you're seeing all this flash, you're going, who is going to stop this? Well, once a few plays go bad and you get into a negative play script, Kellen Moore reverts back to a very, very antiquated style of system that is a really ugly version of the Coryell system where it's quick stuff. And it's looking for curls and looking for things that aren't there unless you're actually threatening vertical. So he eliminates the vertical threat when he gets into a couple negative plays and he goes to a more conservative style of gameplay. And Philly's going to have his head for it. Just watch. It's going to happen in a couple games where they lose some games they should have won. And it's all because of just a few plays going wrong that he scraps some of the creativity. He goes back into what he knows best, what he was groomed into as a young quarterback back when he was on the practice squad in Detroit. So it will be really interesting as far as how that all plays out. And again, how much faith does Sirianni have in Jalen Hurts, and how much does Hurts really trust Sirianni? Because it sounds like that unraveling of their relationship was a big, big part of what caused some of the issues down the stretch for them last year. And I also believe
I could
that
see that.
losing Shane Steichen to the Colts, who is now calling all of those same read option plays where it's using your athleticism, getting you out of the pocket, having you make one read on one defender instead of scanning the whole defense and making a play based on that. And that's exactly what Steichen is now doing for Richardson with the Colts. So it should be successful there because he's really good at it. With that being said, that's what Hurts does really well. His dad groomed him to be an option quarterback through his whole life. That's what they ran when he was in high school. That's what they primarily ran for him in Bama. And when he went to Oklahoma, he was running a little bit more of the spread offense stuff, and you saw him more elevated as a passer. He is capable of doing that. With that being said, the read option is really what his bread and butter is. It's a PRO, where it's a pass read option, or an RPO, a read pass option. Either one, he usually thrives in those situations. You have to have a good bulk of his plays be that. That's not all he can do, but if you don't have that as an essential part of the offense and it's ticking, he's not going to wow you with those standard plays. He can make some of them, but he's not going to be a special difference maker doing that. That's not who he is. So
and I feel like
that's
and you were mentioning about like him and the relationship between him and Sirianni is, it does feel like most of the players are like, well, you don't call anything, you don't do anything. What do you do here? You know, and you've already extended Hurts. I feel like if there's going to be anybody of the two that's going to be on the chopping block, of the two of them, it would be Sirianni, and it wouldn't be Hurts.
Yeah. Right.
But do you have anything else you wanted to add to the program before we head out for the day?
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as just talking about the Cowboys in general, I know a lot of fans like me were expecting a bit of a down year because of how conservative we were in the offseason. We weren't incredibly aggressive. We didn't even get the guys extended that we needed to on our own team, let alone adding some assets. With that being said, if fans are still listening to the podcast here and you're looking for a little bit of glimmer of hope, the defense is going to be really good. Mike Zimmer is going to move Micah Parsons around instead of lining him up at the wide 9 and letting them chip on him all day long and create easy double and triple teams. They're going to move him on and off the line of scrimmage and rush from all positions. He's going to be A gap, B gap, C gap, 9 technique. You're going to see him attack in every possible way. Eric Kendricks is going to do a fantastic job with easily facilitating the defense as the leader and play caller. When the call comes in, he's going to tell everyone exactly where to be. He's been in that system. The secondary is going to be amongst the best in the league, if not the best in the league. It's going to be really exciting to see. The pass rush is where the question lies, and also, obviously, defensive tackle. Mozzie Smith has to take a huge leap. He's not ready for it quite yet. He's a 15 to 20 snap guy. He doesn't have the conditioning. He's not big enough quite yet. He is not what you expected him to be. We just need him to be a solid run plugger for 15 to 20 snaps a game at this point. We need to find someone else at defensive tackle. That's one place they need to address. We also need one more rusher. That's really all I really need to touch on the defense as far as that goes. Offensively, figuring out who can run the ball is really going to be the question. The passing offense is going to be good.
You were just a wealth of knowledge, man. You just put everybody that I've ever had on this podcast to talk about their favorite teams to shame. That was the mic drop of all mic drops.
Well, yeah, just had to get it all in there real quick, But if anybody has questions, hit me up sometime.
I was gonna say, like, it felt like the entire interview, you're like, okay, we're joking, we're having fun, but I'm a football guy. I'm I'm about to burst. Let me get all this knowledge out, Prescott. I swear to God.
Yep. For sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I'm gonna let you go ahead and head out. I appreciate being on here. That was Dylan Larson, former author of The Landry Hat, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when he says he knows what he's talking about, he knows what he's talking about. Dylan Larson, thank you so much for being on the show with me. You know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed. And I can't wait to have you on again because
yes, sir.
Last time I had you on, we did a full draft episode, and that episode was like 4 hours long.
Yep.
And I don't want to do that again, but I do want to have you on more often. For sure.
Yeah, no doubt. We can talk draft going up to it and maybe do a little bit here and there, breaking down maybe positions.
That sounds
taking it a little bit at a time, easier to digest everything.
Dude, that episode was bonkers. It was like an overnight sleepover, but through the internet.
Yes, it was. It was for sure.
Well, also, if you're interested in being on the podcast fantasy football league, let me know because like I'm only in one league right now, and it's a bunch of other podcasters, but I want to have one specifically for my show that people follow, and then just have every week, if you beat somebody, come on, talk smack about the person that you beat, all that good stuff. I want it to be a fun episode. So if you're interested, let me know, and we'll get into that as well.
Yeah, reach out for sure. I'm in.
My man. All right, well, that was Dylan Larson. You know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed. Thank you so much for your time, bud, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.